Dom, are you ready to go where the sun keeps shining
Oh, I am totally
through,
ready to go.
through the fallen rain?
Through the fallen rain,
Yeah,
going where the weather suits my clothes.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, you're all outfitted. I'm still in New York City garb, but
It's funny, man, talk about a memorable theme song.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like
Harry Nilsson really did it.
I know that song so well. I had forgotten a lot of the movie.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I had too. I had too. It had been many, many years since I had seen it,
That
and
was a much freakier movie than I had remembered.
yeah. I mean, I remember it as being kind of a little bit intense. It's very much a buddy movie, which is
It's very much
ironic.
a 60s movie,
Yeah,
which I
I
had forgotten.
mean,
Like I knew the story,
yeah,
but like a lot of the techniques that were used were almost psychedelic.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, it's very much of its time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, everything from everything from the dialogue, which I'm not sure they'd even make the same dialogue nowadays if they tried to. I don't know that anyone would have the courage to remake this the way it was made back then.
I don't think anyone could remake this movie, nor
Yeah,
should anyone. This movie it's a work of art
yeah,
that is of a time and place and can never be repeated, in my opinion.
no, and you know, sooner or later some idiot's going to try it, but it would be a bad idea. Although I was talking to your brother last night. He came by, and I was talking to him, and we were talking about Midnight Cowboy, and he said, "Do you remember when SCTV did a parody of this movie?" And they did, and John Candy was Joe
Huh.
Buck. Believe it or
Okay,
not.
I have to look this up because I do not remember this at
Yes.
all.
And I think Eugene Levy might have been, I'm not sure, but Eugene Levy might have been the Al Pacino. I'm walking here,
Not Al
which
Pacino, Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. Yeah. What am I saying? Um, yes, Dustin Hoffman. And
I'm writing this down because I have to look this up.
yeah, I mean,
And I'll put the link in. If I find it, I will put the link in.
yeah, there's the start of the I'm walking here, which
Mm,
is an off-quoted line.
well, one of the most famous lines in cinema.
Yeah, this was a very, very young Dustin Hoffman, a very, very young John Voight, and they were fantastic in this. They were absolutely fantastic. Just two young actors in their prime, and
Everything about this movie was spot on. Like,
yeah,
I'm critical of movies sometimes. We talk about movies we enjoy. This movie is a work of art. I
yeah,
watched this again and just I'd forgotten how impactful, how stunning everything about this movie was.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a movie that I believe, and actually we didn't even give you a chance to go into the. We
And
just
we'll do
started
that.
launching
Yep.
in of what this movie is, but but as far as like this movie, if you're somebody that is at all an aspiring movie fan and want to have a well-rounded eclectic collection of movies under your belt that you've seen, if you want to see some of the important films of you know a lifetime of filmmaking, this is a movie that belongs up there. This
This is
is
on a number of top 100 films of all times
yeah,
list,
yeah.
and rightly so.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, this movie. It's absolutely a masterpiece. But John, well, now that I'm bringing up Midnight Cowboy, there, why don't you go ahead and give the intro before
So,
we
so
go any
Midnight
further?
Cowboy, we follow the character Joe Buck. John Voight masterfully plays Joe Buck, a young Texan who goes to New York City with visions of becoming basically a gigolo. Uh,
Unrealistic, idealistic
he
dreams
he
of
he's a good-looking guy. I have a feeling he's done well with the ladies since he was young. And now he knows that there are people who will pay for male companionship, and he's ready to cash in. So, with
Yeah.
stars in his eyes, he goes to New York, not
He
with visions of Broadway, but with
gets on a
visions
bus.
of rich
Yep.
widows.
Yeah. He's kind of in many ways a really naive Texan.
He is
Um,
incredibly naive,
yeah.
and New York almost eats him alive
Yeah. Yeah. He's
until he meets Rizzo.
yeah.
Dustin
And,
Hoffman plays Ratso slash
yeah.
Rizzo,
Yeah.
depending on who is talking to him.
Yeah.
Um, a semi-crippled New York hustler, very jaded, um, uh, very much in the trenches when it comes to the hustle game. And after at first ripping Joe Buck off, at last takes Buck under his wing, and the two become fast friends, trying to make it in New York City.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the story, is them struggling together to make it New York City. And
Yeah.
it's
And
kind of a painful story.
it's it's definitely a it's a buddy film.
It is
And
very much a buddy film,
for
but
sure. It's
it's not like most buddy films are feel good.
yeah.
But
And
I consider Heat, the Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy film we watched, I consider that a buddy film. But that was very upbeat. And I think most buddy films are upbeat. And this is not, because these buddies do not have a lot of time with each other.
you didn't find a lot of the humor in this then?
I mean, I found humor. I'm not saying I
Yeah.
didn't find humor,
Oh
but
yeah.
the overall tone of the movie, I would not describe this as a comedy to anyone.
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't say, oh, you're looking for a few laughs, you got to watch Midnight Cowboy.
yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, no, and I fully agree with you as much as I'm joking about it being a comedy. It's absolutely not a comedy.
I mean, it's
Um,
almost traumatic. It is,
it is traumatic. It's in
it's a
many
film
ways.
about some very damaged people.
Yeah. And they are both damaged, and a lot of the people they meet are damaged. Joe Buck has come from a little town in Texas. Um, Apparently he was a little bit of a stud. He had a one girl that he really actually really liked. And they do a lot. There's a lot of flashbacks with that. They never fully tell the story.
I gotta
They
say,
it's,
that is a very quick flashback. And
it,
it's
it
so,
and real
I
broken
consider
up.
that like a huge reveal for the movie. It
Oh, it
explains
is.
so much.
It says so much about Joe Buck and who he is and why he's the person that he is. Um, there's a number of things that get revealed in flashbacks, and one is that he was given up by his mom, turned over to his grandmother, who was somewhat of a floozy, I believe. I guess you could use that word.
It's
And
somewhat inappropriate with him as well,
yes, very
from the
much
look of
so.
it.
There you can see different, just the way she interacts with him, which is partly what is leading to some of his behavior
Right.
later. And also, there is another really traumatic flashback scene where it looks like he's getting intimate with a girl that really cares about him. And apparently, they get attacked by some local good old boys. And it looks like they not only rape her, but it's very little is shown, but you can tell that something happened. And
It seems like they were both victims of
they
sexual
were
assault.
both raped, I believe. He was bent over hood from what
Yeah,
you can.
I mean, so much in this movie is told in um, just shadows, aside,
Yes,
suggestions,
yeah,
and yet it gets the message across. It's very
right.
effective.
Yes, yes, yeah. They really don't like it for anyone that's like afraid of seeing like really graphic scenes or something like that. There's very few scenes that most scenes get cut. Most of the scenes that they're quick flashbacks, reveals that cut away, and you only see it as something of a flashing memory.
This film did get an X rating.
Yeah, but at the time when you look at scenes like that, especially with, I think probably one of these that maybe it was probably there's a lot of, because his idea of becoming a hustler in New York, there are in fact male hustlers who service wealthy women. However, probably the majority of hustlers are probably traditionally, especially back at that time, would have been homosexual serving hustlers. And so a young, good looking guy that goes to New York, he's probably going to do a lot more. And I don't think Joe Buck was expecting that that was what he was going to have to do. But there are a few
I
times.
don't think he was completely ignorant of that,
No,
though.
no, but I also don't, it was like that was, he has a couple of times where he kind of like resorts to doing that, and doesn't work out really well for any of those scenes. But that is, I'm sure that is what really garnered the X rating.
Yeah, yeah, definitely the homosexuality.
So because at the time back then, that was 1969.
Yeah,
That was
69.
really taboo back then. I mean, really taboo. And so, like I said,
It's not just that homosexuality was in the movie, it was one of the main themes. Because to me, again, this is my interpretation, I could be wrong, but I think Joe Buck was gay, was in denial because if you're a male in Texas growing up, you couldn't imagine anyone, including yourself, being gay.
right.
And it's only when he's confronted with some of these things that I don't even think even by the end of the movie, I don't think he fully realizes and accepts himself. But I think he's starting to get an inkling.
Yeah, you could be right. I will not. Um, I won't say that there was any direct um, pushing in that direction. However, I believe you're right. I there were times where I felt like
I mean,
that's, and I
let me point
also,
out let
yeah,
me point out the scene where after the crazy party, the hippie
right,
party, he goes home with that woman. He goes back to her place. He can't perform. And
right.
so they play Scrabble,
Well,
during which she suggests he might be gay. And then, boom, he
right.
performs.
Well, yeah. eh, but there's a number of things I think you could probably lay that down to. Um, if you wanted to psychologically examine it, um, she's she's a rich woman. She's When someone buys another person's sexual services, um, there's you leave that one up there for a second
Yeah.
because I want to make a point about that. Um, but um, they have the power, and some prostitutes will say that they feel like they have power because they're making the guy pay, and or whoever it is paying. So you could look at it that way, depending on how you want to look at the transaction. But you could look at it as he felt less powerful and more impotent, so he couldn't do it. But however, I think you could be right, because it is when she says to him, "Are you?" and she makes a number of joking but pointed references that maybe he's gay. And when she says that, then he gets angry, and when he gets angry, that's when he's able to perform. So is it only because he was taking back power, or trying to, or is it because he was, and he had to prove that he wasn't, and managed to do it by doing the power thing? But I actually, I was, when I was watching this movie, I was thinking along the same lines that you were, and I didn't think that as much in my first viewing many years ago. But I was even noticing the scene you have up behind you right
Hmm.
now. That is Dustin Hoffman's fantasy of
Yeah.
Florida, and it's the two of them chasing each other down the beach.
Frolicking on the
Yeah,
beach.
that's very come on, that's very gay. So so like I said, I actually wondered like, well, because Dustin Hoffman makes a lot of really insulting comments to uh, Joe Buck when he goes out and comes back with money, like, oh, what'd you do? Do some gay, and he's calling him a fag and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think they're very much in denial, and
Yeah,
it's kind of a beautiful relationship, and it's done very well.
yeah. They're truly buddies. They early on, because Dustin Hoffman rips him off. He's furious. He hates Dustin Hoffman, but they both are badly in need of help. Dustin Hoffman is
And
really sick.
friendship.
Yeah, and they develop a really good friendship. They're helping each other out. They're trying to like help each other to succeed. Dustin Hoffman's giving him shelter in a really awful rundown apartment.
And
Uh,
that was actually a condemned building.
I'll bet.
And they couldn't film there that much because there were actual squatters there.
Wow. Yep. I'll bet they were probably sneaking in the building too
Mhm.
to to do some of the shooting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they had to take some parts of that room and recreate it on a soundstage to actually shoot as much as they did because
yeah,
that building was literally unsafe.
yeah, it looked it. It fully looked it. It didn't look that much like a set. It looked a lot more like, and I'm sure of the budget that they were shooting on. Now they had a lot of well-known like uh some of Andy Warhol's people were in the movie. I mean, there's a lot of cameos in this by like Village people and people that were like very much of the New York scene. It's really true life to New York in the at that time. So it's, I mean, like I said, a very coolly shot film. And it's I he cracked me up every time he would do the I'm Joe Buck and he goes, you do that little turn. you know. but but yeah, he was, and then Dustin Hoffman's, putting him down and saying you can't get anywhere in a cowboy outfit. That's a he's he's
I
making all these.
mean, this is one of the earliest films I can think of that really kind of challenged the concept of masculinity.
Yeah, 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 they were it was I don't know. Like I said, it was. I think it was a groundbreaking movie on so many different fronts.
So many different
Um,
fronts.
it was there was almost a little bit of guerrilla filmmaking in it. It was the street scenes. You can see crowd reactions on the street that are very natural. They're looking at the people but they're looking at them in a very realistic way, like it's part of what's happening on the street. The
Yeah,
film.
that's like I've seen a lot of movies that were filmed during the 60s and 70s that show a gritty part of New York streets that you just can't find
Yeah,
anymore. And the movies are they're remarkable just because of that, just because of the scenery.
yeah.
This movie, Midnight Cowboy, is that plus an incredibly awesome movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's, believe me, this movie is, like I said, for anyone watching. Uh, this movie to me is. I would get, whether you want to give it stars, thumbs up, whatever you want to give it. This movie's a masterpiece. If you've never seen it, you owe it to yourself to watch the movie. It's an adult movie. It's very much
And it's not like if you're into genre, believe me, I'm a horror fan, I'm an action fan, I'm a superhero movie fan.
yeah,
But it's like that's like it's like junk food. I enjoy it.
yeah, yeah,
This movie, oof, this has some substance.
yeah,
There's a lot of times we will talk about a movie that is on a top 10 or top 100, and I'll be like, well, I don't know about that. This is a
yeah.
movie that I can't deny. This deserves to be known as one of the best films ever made.
Well, I'm somebody that, we talk about movies because there's certain movies that are just praised, and they call them, oh, that's one of the best movies made of all time. I truly believe this is one of those. There are movies, and I could name off a few that probably would get people, have people that are real film buffs. say, shut your mouth. That's a, but there are movies that I just think it's like, it almost, to me personally, it didn't hit me and it didn't strike me as being, the great movie that, and I have one particular one in mind, and I don't even want to say it because people will really vilify me for saying it, but I do think there are movies that are unjustly portrayed as being great that aren't. This one, it really is, and I actually slipped in, Dom. I just want to point out, I slipped in. This is another, con man hustler type of film that is, and I don't mean hustler in the way of the sexual nature, but hustler in the sense of these guys are running cons just to stay, alive, including this scene here, which was great, where
Oh
Dustin
yeah, the
Hoffman
laundry
goes into his
scene.
act, and John Voight badly needs to get his clothes cleaned, and so he is stuffing John Voight's clothes in, and he's just talking, putting up conversation, acting real friendly, helping these two ladies out. And while he's doing it, he's stuffing clothes in so that they can get washed. But yeah, real. If you're someone that's down on your luck in New York, and you're trying to think of ways of getting things, everything from the way that they're distracting a store owner while there's the other one stealing vegetables out of a cart, all kinds of different stuff like that. And those are some of the comedic stuff that's in this movie, because they really do develop over their dual need to stay alive.
Their
And
shared poverty.
yes, they're both in, and Dustin Hoffman starts to convey this idea. He really wants to get out of New York. He's been freezing in the winters. He wants to get out. He's really sick, more than John Voight realizes. And he keeps saying to him, "I just want to go to Florida." There's a very funny scene where they're freezing, almost freezing to death, and they've got that transistor radio of John Voight's on, and it's playing the orange juice, your ice cold orange juice, and it's like, well, that's the last thing they needed was something ice cold. But
Okay, here's a piece of trivia.
sure,
So just before, I think the year before this movie, Dustin Hoffman filmed The Graduate.
oh yeah, yep,
And so he was seen as kind of a wholesome character.
yeah,
And he didn't think he'd get the part. And so in order to get the part, he filmed the director and said, "Meet me on this basically New York street corner."
yeah,
And he goes there and he's waiting, he's just standing there, and there's this homeless guy begging for change, on the sidewalk.
huh,
And then the guy comes up to the director, and it's Dustin Hoffman. He dressed the
wow,
part. He
yeah,
tried to get into the role just to prove I can do this.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, he did it very effectively, because there are scenes where you look at him and he's so young.
Oh my
He's a
God.
kid. He's a kid. He really is. But there's some scenes where you see his face and you think, my God, he looks like a boy. He looks like just a teenage guy or something. But there's other times where you look at him and, man, his face, it's so weathered, it's so beat down. He really pulls off the guy on his last legs. For somebody that young playing the role, he's tremendous in this. He really is. I have to give these two guys. This was a great matchup. They were perfect. And then, yeah, but the sad part is, because just as John Voight starts to make the connections, when he makes the connection with Brenda Vaccaro, and she's going to recommend him to her friends, and he's like, "Yeah, everything's starting to hit." And that's when Dustin Hoffman says, "I don't think I can walk. I'm afraid. I don't think I can walk anymore. I keep falling down." And that's when John Voight finally realizes, "I got to get this guy out of the city."
Yep.
And it's very sad in the sense when you start realizing, just as they finally, which that's another thing, when he goes to he picks up a gay dude in Manhattan, and they go back to the guy's hotel, and the guy is really torn with what they're going to do, and so he's kind of backing out of it and saying, "Yeah, I shouldn't have done this, and you should probably just go, Joe." And he goes, "Nah." He goes, "I need money. I'm not. I can't. I'm not going. I need money." And so the guy offers him $10, and he's like, "No, I need more than that." And so he
He
ends up,
essentially mugs the guy in his hotel room.
he does. And the one thing that you do really wonder, when they're on the bus together and they're sitting there, and Dustin Hoffman is just really out of it. He's in a bad way, and he glances over at Joe Buck and he says, "You didn't kill that guy, did you? You got blood on your jacket." Which I don't think he killed him, but he could have. Joe Buck never
I
answers.
think it is an unknown.
Yeah,
It
it's
could
an
have gone.
unknown.
I would believe either story.
Yeah, yeah. He was he was sticking the telephone in the guy's mouth, so he had totally lost it at that point. And it was he actually, the one thing about John Voight's character, he's actually a pretty kind person. He has a number of encounters, including one of his earliest encounter with a woman that he thought was going to pay him, and it turns out she's asking him for money. And
Yeah, he
he's like,
just
"I
did
was
not have
gonna."
the temperament to be a hustler. He
No, he
needed
doesn't.
Dustin Hoffman.
No, or to be in New York City. And actually, Florida was much better for him. And when he's saying to, when they're on the bus and they're riding down together, and he's saying to Dustin Hoffman, he goes, I think I might get a job down here, like actual work." And it's like, well, that's a perfect place for a young guy. There's tons of work, especially back then at that time, whether you were driving a truck, doing landscape work. There's tons of work that you could probably find, and work for some of the wealthy people that retire down there. So Florida would have been a much better place, much kinder place than than New York. And not to say that Florida is always kind. There's plenty of shit going on down there too. I've experienced it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Like I said,
It's funny, it's a tale as old of time. Small town kid gets stars in their eyes and travels to the big city with the hopes of making
yeah,
it big.
yeah,
It's almost never New York. Why would you choose New York?
yeah. Well,
Why would you choose the most difficult
well,
place to make it?
there are people that, like, if you wanted to become a, a Broadway star, if you want to become, there are plenty of people that, when they're looking for acting and showbiz, when it's like something like dancers and things like, New York's the place to be. It can, for plays and getting started like that and really earning your acting chops, it can be the place to be. Um, it's the Big Apple, top of the world. But I'll tell you what, it's one of the harshest places to be. It's not kind at all. If you don't know
I
your
mean,
shit,
someone put it to song. If you can make it there, you
yeah,
can
you'll
make it
make it anywhere. Well,
anywhere.
that's true, and that's what the mentality is. It's like, yeah, because it is one of the tougher places to make it. But if you do make it, then you're really big. So in that sense, I mean, Bob Dylan went there, and made it, but he hustled on the street too. God
Oh,
knows what some of the shit that Dylan had to do on the street to.
that that reminds me. He was originally supposed to make the theme song for this.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah,
He wrote
yeah,
Lay Lady Lay
yeah, yeah,
for this, but he took too long, and so they used Everybody's Talking.
yeah. Well, it's funny too, because there's a really good. You ought to leave a link, um, when we do the description. But there is a really good documentary on Harry Nilsson
Mm.
and his meteoric rise to fame. And he actually is quite a character, in and of himself. And he actually grew up in New York. He was desperately poor, very much like Dustin Hoffman almost, where they were living hand to mouth. His father was gone. His mother was trying to support him and I don't know if it was just his brother or whether there was other kids, but he started hustling, doing whatever he could to make a living, and he fell into songwriting. He just kind of fell into it, and it was, uh, man, he took off like they said about Bob Dylan, an unwashed phenomenon. He suddenly, and he ended up in California. He was writing songs for all kinds of big bands. He was very talented. He's actually when John Lennon went out to California on one of his big big tears where he was hanging out with May Pang and he had separated from Yoko. Um, Harry Nilsson and John Lennon got together and they went on like an epic tear.
Hmm.
And both of them had tremendous capacities for drugs and booze. And I guess they did some that in itself. The documentary is well worth watching. But getting back to Midnight Cowboy, it was a perfect song for that. It was all
Oh,
over the
it really
radio.
was. We often have these talks about how we can't imagine anyone else in that role, anyone else doing that song. And yet, so often they were not the first people chosen.
No, and it's funny too because when you think of a song like that, it made the movie. It was so perfect for the film. And I'm telling you, that movie, the popularity of that movie, it was everywhere. I remember so many times riding in the car with my dad or just family in general, and that song coming on the radio, and you'd immediately turn it up. I mean, my dad would turn it up, and that wasn't his
No,
necessarily
that's
his.
not it. I
Yeah,
remember what he used to listen to, and that's not it.
that wasn't it. But it was a pretty song. It was real. It
It's
was
so well done.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. So, like I said, it's one of those songs that, man, if it wasn't in that movie, I think it would have changed the. So, "Lay Lady Lay" is a great song. I love it,
Mhm.
but and it would have worked well in this movie also, but this became the theme.
Okay. Do you know who originally was slated to be Joe Buck in Rizzo?
No,
Lee Majors
oh my God,
was
oh,
originally chosen to be Joe Buck.
the movie would have
And
failed.
he couldn't do it because of the Big Valley. It got
Yeah,
renewed and he
well,
couldn't
I'll
do the
tell you
filming.
what. Dom. He couldn't do it because he wasn't the actor that John Voight was.
There's no way. Don't get me wrong. I like Lee Majors.
Yeah, he's great as a $6 million man, but he's not John Voight. And John Voight, there's people. John Voight's a little crazy. Um, John Voight is a great actor, and
You know, I've seen John Voight in a lot of things. He's never really impressed me, except for this. I've this
yeah,
he's never equaled this role
it's
in my mind.
this is the role of a lifetime. It really is. I mean, even for like Dustin Hoffman's been in some phenomenal movies.
Yes.
He's been lucky being to have gotten the movies that he's gotten to, but this was one of his finest hours. I think this is I love The Graduate. We have to do that one at some point. A
Mm.
terrific movie with a terrific soundtrack, Simon and Garfunkel. But the this role for Dustin Hoffman, this role is the role, man. It's so
So
good.
the director of Midnight Cowboy, John Schlesinger,
Yeah,
he also directed Marathon Man.
yes, yes. Which is another great role of Dustin Hoffman.
Right.
It's my God, the dental scenes in that are just so hard to. But
Oh.
that's another one we will have to break down because it's so good. One
So
of,
do you
one of the things with this one, this movie absolutely killed me the first time I saw it, and because I didn't know it was gonna. I mean, I knew he was really in a bad way, but I kept hoping like, oh, maybe he'll get because every time John Voight tried to take him to a doctor, he was like, no, they'll put me in a place and I won't be able to get out. And I know what happens to people when they put them in. So he was worried about ending up in a poor man's hospital, which in 1969 it was a lot harder. If you didn't have money and you ended up in a hospital, and God forbid where you might end up. So he was right, but this was so hard to take though. Here, John Voight gets him on the bus. They're riding to Florida. They're both happy, but I think Justin Hoffman also knew. It's like, yeah, I'm fading. Um, he started he started losing control. He pisses himself. Um, John Voight buys him these clothes, which he's actually helping him put on while he's riding. And damned if Dustin Hoffman doesn't die. And spoiler alert, um,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen the movie, but in some ways, I don't know. I think it's almost better to be prepared for it. But by then, their relationship had become so tight, and he was so happy about getting this poor guy to Florida, and they were in Florida, and he tells the bus driver, that's the bus driver standing there, and he tells him, yeah, something wrong with my friend, and uh, he goes back there and he's like, yeah, just and nothing to worry about, people, everything's fine. It's like everyone's turned around looking, they all realize like, well, this guy's dead, it's but it's real sad. So I would say that's probably the worst part of this movie.
This movie is soul crushing.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, he has to shut his eyes. His eyes are open. He dies with his eyes open. But you also see that John Voight's kind of almost in his element when they hit Florida. He goes into a he goes into a restaurant to buy some food for them, and the the girl at the counter is like, "Where you from? You're from." She's real friendly, Florida, real Florida girl, and and he's like, "Wow, people are actually friendly down here. They're talking, and that is something I do notice. I've spent so much time in New York City, and it's not that people from New York are really cold, but they have learned over the years that you just don't open yourself up. You don't open yourself up for trouble. And there's so many people that are hustling or
Well, I mean,
willing to
there's
take
so
advantage.
many people there. You just never know what they're really like.
Yeah. So you just close yourself. And if somebody tries to approach you on the street, man, you just don't talk to them. It's because it's like, what's their game? Why are you talking to me? We're both New Yorkers. We both know you're breaking the rules. you know. So so yeah, like I said, if you're a real New Yorker, you just learn to be wary. Um, but Florida people are way more. There's certain parts of the country. I noticed that when I went to Washington State, I'd be in a store and somebody would start talking to me, and I'd look at the guy or woman or whoever it was, and I'd go like, "What's your game? Like what?" I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I'd be thinking, "Why does this person want to talk to me?" And they're just being friendly, and there's nothing. They're not like, but I'm looking at them like, you know, all right, what's going on? Like what are you going to pull? And but it's the difference in different parts of the country.
Oh
Texas,
yeah, as an East Coaster, when I first moved to the West Coast,
yeah,
and like I'm having cashiers and servers just randomly chat me up, and I'm like,
yeah,
why are you talking to me?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I was in Oregon after I left your place one time visiting you and Lisa. I stopped into a McDonald's drive-through, and the guy at the McDonald's drive-through was, "Hey, dude, how you doing, man?" And we're talking, and we had a whole conversation. Luckily, there wasn't anybody behind me, but but yeah, like I said, it was like I just had so many times where people were just like friendly, and it's the difference between I'm so used to New England, and I really like New England people. I like the fact that we're you know we're slower but I think we probably make like deep lasting friendships when we make
The
them. It's
thing
just
is
that we
New England people don't have any need whatsoever for you to like them.
no, and it's like if something happens and you become friends, it's going to happen. But nobody is like really pushing to try to make that happen. So it's something that um, it's a whole different form of living and friendship and communication. We're just not that same crowd, and I like that. I do like it. I have to say, because I have seen that sometimes with the South. I've seen where somebody was really friendly, but superficially, and you realize this is all in a superficial way. And whereas if a New Englander, if they start acting friendly, it's usually because if they're not hustling you, it's because they're actually starting to really show signs they like you and they want to be friends with you. But yeah, we're much slower to start, doing that. It's
So
just our way.
Dustin Hoffman's character, Rizzo,
Yeah.
do you know who was offered the role before Hoffman?
No.
Robert Blake,
Uh,
Beretta.
I'm not saying Robert Blake, weird, strange dude that he actually is. I'm not saying he really understood what a hustler was
Mhm.
because he did it, but at the same time, um, he's not the same person, and he was too caught up in his being a tough guy. It would have changed the whole dynamic of that wouldn't have worked. It really wouldn't have worked. Dustin
He
Hoffman
turned the
was the
role
man.
down and he regretted it for the rest of his
I'll
life.
bet he did, but he wasn't right for the role. I don't think. I think
It's hard to say
Dust.
in retrospect. We'll never know.
No, we will never know. But Dustin Hoffman, the thing he had, because he brought a real streetwise persona. So you really believed he was a street guy, and that he was streetwise. But you also saw a real vulnerability in Dustin Hoffman in that role, and that vulnerability, I don't think Robert Blake could have brought to it, because Robert Blake, if you've ever watch him on talk shows, he's he's so busy trying to be. He's almost got like he's short like Dustin Hoffman is, and he's got like little man syndrome. He's always had this thing of like, yeah, I'm the tough guy. You want to go, you want to, it's that type of mentality. I don't think he could have played the role that Dustin Hoffman played. That
I am, truthfully, I am not that familiar with Robert Blake's acting. I've seen him
Yeah,
in Beretta. I've seen him in Lost Highway,
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
most
Oh yeah, yeah,
scary characters ever
yeah.
in a movie.
He was in Cold Blood also, which is
Oh,
probably
really?
one. Yeah, that was one of his better roles. He did have a little bit of a vulnerability in that one. Played a complex character, but I don't know. I'm so used to how he came across, whether it was he was Beretta and he was the tough guy in Beretta. Maybe he could have pulled it off. I don't know. I shouldn't say that he couldn't have, but I think he is a good
But,
actor.
but I mean, Dustin Hoffman, he pulled this off masterfully.
Yeah,
He was Rizzo. You fully believed it was him.
yeah. I'm so grateful that he was the character because um, he just did it so well. And these two, like I said, um, they bonded. They chemistry. They worked on screen. They were buddies. They were good friends. And just seeing the evolution of their friendship and how by the time they got to Florida, he's Dustin Hoffman's actually pretty broken over the idea of like, wow, I got him down here and he's dead. He just
Yep.
died on him. But
Good friends.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
this
yeah.
is Brokeback
Well,
Mountain.
yeah. Well, hey, it could have been. It
And it was
definitely,
beautiful like that.
yeah. It's I would not in the least deny the fact that because there were the way they interacted with each other, and I think probably a lot of people saw it because I think that's probably what really helped towards the X rating and stuff like that, because
Mhm.
there is no outward sexual stuff between the
There's
two of
nothing
them at
overt.
all, but they had a friendship, and it was,
I think they truly loved each other.
yeah. So it was, and I mean, it could have been they were just brothers. It also could have been that there was something there, but at any rate, like I said, it's a terrific film, whether you want to call it a buddy film or whatever. It's just an outstanding movie that I truly believe if you've never seen this movie, you need to see it. It's it, it I give this movie full praise, and what a soundtrack! Like I said,
Oh
the
yeah.
Harry Nilsson soundtrack of Everybody's Talking. If you were alive back then, I was a kid. I was, I mean, I was not even 10 years old when this movie came out. I didn't see it for years afterwards. It certainly wasn't, it wasn't a movie that,
Yeah,
a
I don't
kid
think
was
you'd
going to,
be seeing it when you were a
no.
kid.
So I had no idea the context of the movie to the song. I might have seen trailers on playing on TV, but probably not. I don't think it was till years later that I became aware of the movie. But like I said, this movie is just uh, nothing but praise for it. It's a perfect movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
I gotta say this is not my kind of movie. I I would have never chosen this on my own.
right.
That being said, this is an amazing movie. I
Yeah,
loved it.
I have to say, because I chose this movie, I have to say we were when we were talking last week, and you said, "So do you know what you want to pick?" And I had been torn between a few different things, but I haven't seen this one or hadn't seen this one in a long time.
I hadn't
And I
seen
was
this in about 20 years.
yeah, it was probably pretty much the same amount of time. And when I got around to like what am I gonna pick, and when you said it, it kind of like hit, and I was like Midnight Cowboy, and you looked surprised. You were like, "Oh, okay," and you just kind of had that reaction, and it cracked me up. But but because I also kind of felt to myself like, um, I mean, should I have chosen that one? But I'm really happy I did, and I'm really
I'm happy you did too. This is never a bad choice.
yeah. It's a and I don't know how much longer it's going to be before I see it again. Maybe it'll be quicker, but I love the movie. It's really, really, really well done. Brenda Vaccaro's in it. She's a great actress and she's beautiful, terrific. She's really good in this. There's so many different character actors in this movie that are you know them from other films, and this dude here, and I can't even his name isn't coming to mind.
That's John MacGyver, I
Yes.
believe.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's been in so many movies, so many small roles. And way back when we first started, we were talking about that, and you came out with the, we're talking about no small parts, and he he's in this for
He's unforgettable.
he's really unforgettable, and he's funny. What some of the few comedic moments, because this is when Dustin Hoffman sets John Voight up. He takes money. Supposedly, he's meeting
A
somebody that's
pimp.
going. Yeah, this guy's going to be his pimp. He's gonna set him up with beautiful ladies. He gets into the guy's apartment. It's a seedy little apartment, and John Voight's kind of looking around like, what the fuck's going on? And then he's saying to him, do you want to get down on your knees now with me? And we're going to get to, and next thing you know, he wants him to pray with him. And John Voight's like, I got to get out of here.
That scene
And
was so well done.
yeah, it really was. And then all he's doing, he's looking. Dustin Hoffman has taken a lot of his money, and he's looking for Dustin Hoffman like that son of a bitch. I'm going to get him. And for days, he's looking for him. And of
Jeez.
course, finally finds him. He's really down in his luck by the time he finds him. And all Dustin Hoffman has are like a couple of pennies and some gum, a bent cigarette. He's got nothing, and but he's saying to him, "You can come stay with me." So, so yeah, like I said, they're like thrust into this friendship, and they're taking care. Dustin Hoffman showing them how to survive on the street and how to get food, and how to he's got this crazy way of preparing food in a
And,
place
and
that has
Joe becomes like a defender to
yeah
Ratso.
Yeah. So they're just and they're also like Dustin Hoffman's trying to like help him out to be a successful hustler and which is not working that well, uh but yeah,
Every
they're
now and then I will see posted online the question, what is the greatest movie you never want to watch again?
right.
And it's so good and
Yeah.
it's so heartbreaking. It kind of falls in that
Yeah,
category.
I agree. I agree because I hadn't seen this in a long, long time. And even saying to you, hey, that's my pick, I also, in the back of my mind, I was like, I remember how hard this movie hit me.
Yeah.
And it did. The movie actually brought a huge reaction of like, wow, this is sorrowful by the time it ends. So there is some real sadness by the time this movie comes to a conclusion. You're like, yeah, uh, this was a long trip with these two guys, and to have it end the way it ended with Dustin Hoffman dying on, it's sad,
Yeah.
but
For me personally, again, way
yes,
two thumbs up.
yeah,
So
I
many
will
thumbs.
fully agree with you. And having said that, we probably we probably have said what we could say.
We probably said this is a hard movie because it's so good and so iconic that many others, many more eloquent people have talked about this so much.
Yeah,
And so other than just gush our praise, I don't know how
yeah.
much more I can add to that
Well,
conversation.
that's probably the trouble for me in this is that I don't have I don't like there are some movies when I watch them, I think, geez, I wish they had done this or I wish they hadn't done that. I can't think of a thing in this movie that if I was standing around with the director and the actors, I wouldn't be saying, yeah, maybe you should have done this or maybe you should do that. It's like, no, I kind of stood in awe of how
Yeah.
this movie played out. There's nothing that I would have changed about it. Everything worked. The nobody nobody was miscast, even down to the smallest players in this, just perfect. So, having said all of that and wrapping this up, please, people, see this movie if you've never seen it.
This is a phenomenal movie. If you
Yeah,
love cinema, you gotta see it.
yep. And if you would leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and just check out all our other movie talks because we definitely every week we do one. And having said that, Dom, do you know what you're going to pick for next week?
I do. I do indeed.
Okay.
Because I need the emotional antidote to the
Yeah,
soul crushing.
I traumatized you.
Exactly. Although part of me wanted to choose Urban Cowboy just to play on
Hey,
words.
actually,
But
that
no,
wouldn't
no,
have.
no. I'm choosing The Hidden.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes, with Kyle MacLachlan.
Yep. Yep. I love Kyle MacLachlan. I love the movie The Hidden. It's a weird movie too. It's a weird,
Yes.
and it's bringing us back to sci-fi, which is not a bad thing. So yeah, The Hidden is a really good film. Great pick. I look forward to. I haven't seen that in a while.
I haven't
So
seen that in years. Yeah.
yeah, and I definitely own that on Vudu. So little shout out to Vudu, and Vudu, you ought to sponsor us because we talk about you all the time.
Please.
So yeah,
Voodoo and or Tubi. Either one,
yeah.
please.
Oh
Just
my
throw us a
God, I
few
love
bucks.
Tubi. Yeah, yeah. So hey, if you're listening, we'll sponsor or we'll definitely
We'll Midnight Cowboy for you.
yeah, exactly. We'll hustle for you. We'll go where the sun keeps shining. But yeah, having said all that, I think we can say this was a great movie to talk about, and The Hidden will be a great one to talk about. So Dom, having said all that, I will see you next week.
Yes, you will. See
All
you,
right,
man.
everyone out there, thank you for watching, and see you next week.